इमम्मे गंगे यमुने सरस्वती शुतुद्रिस्तोमगं सचता परुष्णिया असिक्निया मरुद्वृधे वितस्तयार्जीकीये शृणुह्या सुशोमया. This verse is a very famous verse and is part of what is called as Nadi Sukta in the Rig Veda. Almost all these rivers have been recognized: Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Shutudri and so on. But the only problem is about Saraswati. Last time I had given you some information. Saraswati is not a mythical river. It did exist and it was the biggest river during the Vedic times. In fact, there have been research groups and parties which have tried to trace the origin and also the place of flow of this river. And now the scholars are telling us that Saraswati must have disappeared into the sands around 2000 BC. And the Harappa Mohenjo-daro civilization existed on the banks of the Saraswati river towards its later days. And one of the proofs which has corroborated this conclusion is the finding of a bronze image of Vasishtha in 1958, and the various tests done in the laboratories, including France and the United States, have confirmed its date as 3700 BC. And that is the image of Vasishtha. And the description of Vasishtha as given in the 7th mandala of the Rig Veda and this image match absolutely. Now we go to the next part of this Aghamarshana Sukta, 9th, 10th and 11th. Ritancha satyam chabhidhat tapasodhyajayata tato ratri rajayata tatas samudro arnavaha samudrad arnavat adhi samvatsaro ajayata ahoratrani vidadhat vishwasya mishato vashi surya chandramasau dhata yatha purvam akalpayati divancha prithvincha antariksham atho suvaha. In fact, these three mantras are also taken from the Rig Veda, practically the last part of the Rig Veda, 10th mandala and Sukta 190, mantras 1 to 3. The Rishi to whom this Sukta was revealed was Aghamarshana, the son of Madhu Chandas. For every Sukta mentioned in the Rig Veda, tradition attributes it to a particular Rishi and the Devata to whom it is addressed, and also the Chandas, the meter in which the mantra has been revealed. Aghamarshana, the son of Madhu Chandas, is the Rishi to whom this mantra was revealed. And the entire Sukta is also called as Aghamarshana Sukta, where the meaning of Aghamarshana is different. Aghamarshana as Rishi, Aghamarshana just as a phrase which indicates the destruction of sin, they are different. So these three mantras, which are part of the Rig Veda Mandala 10 and Sukta 190, were revealed to the sage Aghamarshana. And what is the Viniyoga? How to use it? Just a repetition with devotion, that's all. And the result will be destruction of sins. The only thing that is to be observed is that the person who repeats this does the japa of this mantra has to stand in water, generally up to the chest, and then repeat these sukta, the mantras of the sukta, at least 3 times. And the phala that one gets by the repetition of these mantras of the Aghamarshana Sukta is equal to the result that one gets by performing Ashwamedha sacrifice. Such statements are called as Arthavadas in the Vedas. Eulogy. It just the very purpose of these statements is to induce people to perform either those rituals or repeat those mantras or practice those disciplines recommended by the scriptures. Pavitranam pavitrastu japed eva aghamarshanam apah pravishya yaschaitat trih pathet susamahitah yatha ashwamedha avabhritah tadrisham munurabravit tatha aghamarshanam suktam sarva papa apanodanam. One of the ancient works called Rigvidhana explains the Viniyoga, the use of these mantras which come in the Vedas. So this Rigvidhana is telling us that this mantra is the holiest of the holy recitations, and one who recites after entering into the water 3 times, he will get the same phala or result as that obtained by the Avabhrita Snana after completing Ashwamedha Yaga. Avabhrita Snana is a technical term, a ceremonial bath taken after any big ritual is performed. When a yaga is performed like Ashwamedha or Rajasuya, after the whole process is gone through, finally the Yajamana who performs the sacrifice and the chief priest, both of them go to a nearby tank or river and take a ceremonial bath. Avabhrita Snana. Once Avabhrita Snana is over, that means the entire ritual has been completed with that. Then they come back and feed the poor people, give dana, gifts to the poor people and so on. Just as Avabhrita Snana indicates the completion of the Ashwamedha sacrifice, and whatever fruit or result the person has to get will accrue to him at the end of the Avabhrita Snana. In the same way, one who repeats this Aghamarshana mantra standing in water 3 times, he will get equal result. Then coming to the mantras themselves, there is a description of how this world is created. Pritancha satyancha abhidhat tapasah adhyajayata. Paramatman, God the Supreme, God the Creator, did tapas. And after tapas he created this universe. Yasya jnanamayam tapaha tapasa chiyate brahma. This is how the Upanishads describe. Even Parabrahman, Paramatman, God the Creator, has to do tapas before he undertakes the big task of creating this universe. Then what about us? It simply means that if we want to undertake any work in our life, something big and great and difficult, we have to perform tapas. Tapas of body, tapas of speech, tapas of mind, so that our entire psychophysical system becomes fit for that particular task. That is why you see, before performing a sacrifice or undertaking any complicated ritual, the person who undertakes that is advised to take diksha, certain vows with a sankalpa. then he has to observe those rules and regulations during that period. As a mark of that, generally either the darbha is tied to the fingers or a colored thread is tied to the hand. He is under diksha, under discipline for that period. So tapas is absolutely necessary before we take up any big task, difficult task. So even Ishvara does tapas before creating this universe. As far as we are concerned, tapas means austerities of body, speech and mind. But for Ishvara, Paramatman, God the Supreme, there is no such thing as observing these austerities. His tapas is simply sankalpa, that's all. That is how the commentators put it. Yasya jnanamayam tapaha. Mundaka Upanishad says, for the Lord, the tapas is just the alochana. He sits, closes his eyes and starts thinking, how shall I create? An entire plan of creation is produced in the mind. We have an expression in Kannada, tale bisi aitu. A person is thinking about a problem. He tries to think about it very intensely, find out the root of the problem, the solutions, the various pros and cons, and in the process the brain gets heated up. Tale bisi aitu anta helteve. So that itself shows bisi means to burn, to become hot. So tale bisi avudu antandre to think intensely. And intense thinking is tapas because it heats up the brain, literally speaking. But in the case of the Supreme Lord, it just produces the result, that's all. So the Lord is not doing tapas in the sense that we do. Intense thinking itself is equivalent to tapas. Then the second point that is to be noted is the process of creation. The order of creation that is given here is different from what is given in the Upanishads. We have a number of Upanishads. 10 Upanishads are the major ones, the more ancient ones. Outside the 10 we have another 4 or 5. These 15 Upanishads are considered to be very ancient, very authoritative, very important, because only these 15 Upanishads have been discussed in the Brahma Sutras. The main task of the Brahma Sutras is to put the various statements given in the Upanishads together, link them intelligently and bring out a philosophy. This is done admirably by the Brahma Sutras. It became a necessity because over the centuries much of the Upanishadic literature was lost. There are 2 or 3 different ways of interpreting the Upanishads. The tradition takes the entire body of the Upanishadic literature as one unit, Shruti. It may be Chandogya, it may be Brihadaranyaka, it may be Ishavasya, it may be Aitareya, it doesn't matter. Individually they may have different names, but collectively they form one unit called Shruti. So whatever is said in the Shruti is the final authority for us, final proof. But the problem is what is given in the Prashnopanishad and what is given in the Chandogya or what is given in the Brihadaranyaka, there seem to be differences. This and that don't match it. Sometimes we find that the orders are also changed. Here 1, 2, 3, 4 in a particular order it is there. There it will be 3, 2, 1, 4 like that. We do not know which is correct. So in order to rectify these anomalies, Brahma Sutras were written by the sage Badarayana, who is identified by our tradition with Vyasa Maharshi. He took all these controversial statements that appear in the Upanishad, gives the correct meaning, correct interpretation, answers the objections raised against them, gives the proof, and finally gives his conclusion. This is the philosophy of the Upanishad. This is the order in which it should be taken, filling up the gaps. The second method of looking at the problem is, as Swamiji says in some of his lectures and talks, you take the Upanishads as independent philosophical systems. That of sage Yajnavalkya or Gautama Aruni or Shvetaketu, each one of them is a great sage in his own right. What he has experienced through his sadhana, through his experience, that he is trying to give. Since the ultimate truth is infinite, nobody can comprehend the whole truth completely. It is possible that there are differences in the modes of expression. Though the descriptions given by the various sages appear to be incomplete or do not match with one another, it doesn't mean that the truth is subject to confusion. It is something like the blind man and the elephant. Only one aspect of the truth is experienced by this sage, another sage has experienced another aspect. God is infinite, Ananta, Anadi, Ananta. It is not possible for anybody to express the whole of God completely. This is another view. It doesn't matter. What we have to do is, whichever view appeals to us, we can take. But basically there is no difference between the philosophy of Yajnavalkya or that of Shvetaketu or that of Gautama and others. This has been proved in the Brahma Sutras. The order of creation that is given in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Etasmadatmanaha akasha sambhutaha akashadvayuhu vayoragnihi agnirapaha adhya prithvi prithiviyam oshadhihi oshadhibhyaha annam, and the order that is given here are entirely different. So Sayanacharya, who has done yeoman service to us, to the later generations by writing commentaries on the entire Vedic literature, is telling us what is important is the general idea of the Srishti or creation. We should not bother about the order or the details that are given here. So once we keep this in mind, it's very easy to understand these mantras. Abhi-iddhat abhitah prakashamanat paramatmanaha. The Lord is sitting there, he is doing tapas, intense thinking, and from such Paramatman who is thinking intensely, who is blazing brilliantly, one by one these things are coming out. The first thing to come out is Rita, and then Satya. Rita is the cosmic law, that which is straight. Well, these words are very difficult to interpret, and different scholars have developed their theories in different ways. So Rita is interpreted here as Satya Alochana, true thoughts. And Satya is the speech that comes out based upon this truth. So the true thought and the true speech emerged out of Paramatman or God. There is another equally great commentator, Bhatta Bhaskara he is called. It's more difficult to get his commentary than Sayana's, but fortunately the Oriental Research Institute in Mysore has brought out the Vedic literature with Bhatta Bhaskara's commentary. There he says Rita means the Jiva Jata, the totality of the individual souls. Satya means the individual jivas. That is how he puts it. So according to this interpretation, out of the tapas of the Lord, the entire living body or living beings as a unit came out, then it broke up into individual living beings. Another interpretation is Rita means the Panchabhutas, Satya means the 14 worlds. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, we can say that the various objects of creation as we see and as we know, or as we have heard of from the scriptures, they emerged out of the Lord, out of his tapas. The other factors of creation are Surya and Chandra, day and night, Nadi and Samudra, Bhumi and Antariksha, the living and non-living objects, and so on. Unlike the Semitic religions, Hinduism accepts the cyclic theory, Srishti Chakra, Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. Again Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. This is Anadi and Ananta. It is going on eternally. There is no beginning, no end. So, the commentator says, how did the Lord create Surya and Chandra, day and night, and Nadi and Samudra, river and ocean and so on? Yatha Purvam Akalpayat. He created them as they existed in the earlier creations, since it's a continuous process. Even in this world, you take an expert carpenter. Now this carpenter is asked to create a table, to prepare a table. He is not creating something which is absolutely new for the first time. He has done many tables earlier. Immediately he thinks of the tables he has created or prepared earlier. Maybe he will make some changes to suit the taste of the person who wants it. In exactly the same way, though the objects created are the same as in the previous creations carried over, still minor variations can be done according to the needs of that particular creation. Each creation depends upon the totality of the prarabdha karma of the souls which come into this creation, which have not yet obtained their redemption in the previous cycles. Suppose there is one Srishti and Sthiti and Pralaya, and in this cycle, let us say 1,000 people have got mukti, and 1 billion people are still there yet to get mukti. Now these 1 billion souls will go and sleep in the body of the Lord, something like stupor or deep sleep. Each one of them has some karma. The totality of the karma of all the souls put together, the resultant karma, that will be the pattern for the next universe. So the next year's cycle of creation will depend upon this resultant karma of the souls which are yet to get redemption or mukti. So according to that, some details have to be worked out, some changes have to be made. But the general pattern is the same. One table will not have 2 legs and another will not have 5 legs. All the tables have generally 4 legs. A table has a particular general pattern, but the height or width or some other minor details can be varied, something like that. So how did he create the sun and moon and other objects? Yatha Purvam Akalpayat. As in the previous cycles of creation, the Lord created these. Another interesting factor that is pointed out here is time. Some philosophical systems like the Vaisheshika Darshana, Nyaya Vaisheshika, the logical schools, they accept Kala as a Nitya Vastu, Sapta Padarthi. There is a work. It gives 7 fundamental objects which have existed eternally. And the whole creation is created out of a permutation and combination of these 7 objects. And one of them is Kala. But in Vedanta, even Kala is a Janya Vastu. It is also a product created by the Lord. It is not a fundamental unit or substance. Sarve nimesha jagnire vidyutah purushat adhi kala muhurtah kashthascha ahoratrascha sarvatah ardhamasa masa ritavah samvatsarascha kalpantam sa apah pradughe ubhe imi antariksham atho suvaha. These mantras are taken from the Mahanarayana Upanishad, from which the Aghamarshana Sukta also is taken up for study. So here we get an inkling into the concept of time as our ancient rishis had conceived. Nimesha is the fundamental smallest unit. The time that you take for batting the eyelid. If That is taken as one fundamental unit. Then 18 nimeshas make one kashtha, 13 kashthas make one kala, 30 kalas make one kshana, what we call as a second, and 12 kshanas make a muhurta, and 30 muhurtas make a day of 24 hours. Here, only muhurta is more common. We have this word muhurta used in the panchangas, in the almanacs. One muhurta means 48 minutes. So this is how they calculated time. Of course we have a different way of counting time. We have our own modern gadgets. But in the ancient times they took this, probably they thought that the time taken for batting an eyelid of all the human beings is common. And that is taken as one fundamental unit. Whatever it is, what is called as kala, starting with the smallest unit of time, right up to ages, everything was created by the Supreme Lord. Desha, Kala, Nimitta. These three words are often used in our philosophical systems. Space, time and causation. And all these three have come out of the Supreme Lord Himself. So as I told you, the various objects of creation given here and the order in which they are given here are not important. We have to take just the total idea that the Lord created the universe, the world comprising all these various items. Then we go to the next three mantras. Yat prithiviyagam rajaha swam antarikshe virodasi imagam yat apaha varunaha punatu aghamarshanaha punantu vasavaha punatu varunaha punatu aghamarshanaha yesha bhutasya madhye bhuvanasya gopta yesha punyakritan lokan yesha mrityoho hiranmayam dyava prithivyor hiranmayagam sagam shritagam suvaha sanasuvaha sagam shishadhi. This pure Vedic Sanskrit. People who have a knowledge of classical Sanskrit will not be able to understand the Vedic Sanskrit unless there is a commentary by standard commentators giving the equivalents in classical Sanskrit. And that has been done, yeoman service has been done to us by Sayanacharya, who lived in the Vijayanagar period, 14th century. It is said that the kings Hukka and Bukka, under the inspiration of the great sage Madhava Vidyaranya, formed a big committee of Vedic scholars. Sayana was the chief editor. Sayana's commentary is not only his individual work, so the entire group of Vedic scholars produced this. But we should remember that Sayana, who produced the commentary, or Sayana's group of scholars, belong to the 14th century, whereas these scriptures may be 3000, 4000, 6000 BC.